Excellent, excellent, excellent. Another deep breath. So, Dunchiate Emma,
Yes.
why are we here?
Well, I like to think we're here because this is a centre of and for peace. We use the Living Peace Code, which is on the wall and also in your books, to raise our vibration and help develop our own sense of inner peace for when, no matter what's going on in our external world, we can still be okay, and helps us be productive, I think.
Absolutely. It's quite important. And like, how many peace centers are there in the world? There's a lot of love centers, but not necessarily peace centers, because it's so interesting that a lot of spirituality, religions, even political groups and just cultural groups, so much just emphasizes love and the whole love thy neighbor. You hear that constantly. But write this down. Be at peace with thy neighbor. Because you could be pissed off at someone and love them at the same time. But it's a whole nother ballpark when you actually develop a sense of inner peace with anything that is going on. And that's just a really important reminder for ourselves, that it's not enough to just have love for someone. You want to be at peace with those individuals, especially if you're married to them. Kind of important. A little bit important. No, it's very important. And so I just always love to make that as an introduction, simply because I just constantly hear in the spiritual circles, the New Age circles, the self-help industry, it's all about this essence of love. But again, if you don't actually have that sense of inner peace, the love is always going to be conditional. And the moment something goes awry, you're going to get pissed off, you're going to get upset, you're going to get passive-aggressive. All of these things, you're going to project guilt and shame, and you're going to manipulate situations so that you can gain a little bit more ground. So you it's like, who has ever been in a relationship where it's kind of like that tug-of-war back and forth with that power, and then you're constantly feeling disempowered, and then you try to lash out and you gain that power, and then you feel disempowered. It's just this back and forth struggle. Even in the workplace, even in friendships, there always seems to be this lack of balance of fully listening and to hearing one another. And so today we're going to actually learn a little bit more about that. But again, just peace is one of the most important things, and my favorite quote from Living Peace, plug my book, available on Amazon, is Living Peace. Unconditional love is the outer expression of inner peace. Unconditional love is the outer expression of inner peace. And many of you who's been with me for a few years knows this, but we can always use the refresher, because unconditional love, outer expression of inner peace. And if we don't have that inner peace, again, like I already mentioned, that love is always going to be conditional. And the more self-awareness that we develop, we just realize how crazy we are when we get into relationships and when we don't get our way. And so we'll have some wonderful discussions about that today. So let us, we have a couple other students with us today. Normally we have more, but today we have a little bit of smaller group. But Ella-san, anything else you'd like to add on top of what the center is about, or what you like about it in particular?
Well, I guess I'll start with just like the robes. And
yeah, that's a good idea. Especially for our viewers at home.
So the robe, the idea is kind of like we're modern day monks, and they just represent our commitment to the path of peace. Yeah. So that's what they're for, and that we're in the Janisha program, which is all a part of the Earth Spirit Center. And so I work here and I live here, and it's just it's a really beautiful place to come if you're looking for people that are compassionate and understanding, and kind of like a non-judgmental space. Everyone is welcome here, people of all religions, and I really like that. So it's just it's a really, I think it's a really beautiful community.
Beautiful, thank you. And so yes, we often like to say Dunasha, that's kind of our more spiritual path, but today we'll be learning about living peace. But Dunasha is the bridge between all religions. And so that's kind of how we view spirituality here, is we're meant to be a bridge. Rather than saying one way is the right way and the other ways are the highway, no, we want to constantly build bridges of communication, not even just in spiritual paths, but just in just everything. Because who has someone in your life that you don't really get along with? Hopefully all of you. Not actually hopefully all of you, but I get a sense that all of you have someone in your life that there's a challenge with, even if it's just observing something going on in the world. There's like, you feel that, ugh. And so, absolutely, and so we're meant to build a bridge of compassion, build a bridge of understanding, build a bridge of peace, and that can only be done with self-awareness. So, thank you. And Erica-san?
I just really love how understanding people are here. We all go through our walks of life on our journeys, and people are very accepting and give you space to be on your journey while not judging you.
Mm-hmm.
We have people to talk to if you need that, and but they're not going to rush up and help you. It's kind of like a solo kind of thing, and you can request assistance and guidance if you need.
I love that. I love that. So if any of you start crying, don't expect us to rush to you. You can just wallow in your pain while I'm speaking, and it's going to be good. And the reason why that's cool and that's different here is because it's really important to be able to self-soothe. And if instantly we come with a tissue and we're like, oh, don't cry, because who said that to someone before? You hand someone a tissue, say, don't cry, it's okay. That stops the process. No, get it out, let it out. And so it's very different to be in a group of people that there really is no judgment. But also what that no judgment means is there's no pity. There's no over-sympathizing, you poor thing, I'm so sorry. Who knows what it's like to receive pity? It's not uplifting. And so, absolutely. So when we say that there's no judgment, it also means that there's none of that external pity that's reinforcing the victim mentality. You know, we're really here to rise above that. And as Erica-san was saying, this whole acceptance business and non-judgment business, it takes a lot of work to get to that. And so it's not just like we all come together and then we're just like, oh, we're here and there's no more judgments in our hearts against anyone or anything. Because the truth is, especially in my other classes where there's more dialogue between people, people are going to say stuff that's going to trigger you. Because you're going to be like, oh, I went through that experience. And you start to feel the pain. Or you start to hear maybe someone's being abused, and all of a sudden you start having these evil thoughts towards this person that's abusing this individual. All of a sudden, what happened? You just lost your peace. So now we're in this peaceful circle, and then you're fuming over here, you're feeling more grief about the situation than the person that's talking. And then, oh my gosh, and you know what this is like, because if you've ever turned on the news, I'm sure you have felt a little bit of grief at some point in your life. Even if you just turn on the news and you see this war going on, or any type of war, it's fascinating how we start to feel more grief for the world, even though we're not actually going through the experience. And so that's the very essence of what non-judgment is about. And again, we'll go a little bit more into that later. Dunchie, Emma, anything more?
No, that was good.
Excellent. Deep breath in. Post-traumatic stress is something that all of us struggle with without even knowing it. Because every time we go into a new relationship or a new work environment or pretty much anything in life, any new experience in life, we have all experienced some type of stressful situation up to that moment. And who has treated someone with unkindness before? Good. A room full of deviants. I came prepared. So, absolutely, we have all responded and with unkindness towards someone. And the reason why this is because we all have post-traumatic stress. Often from childhood, often from some relationship we've been in to where we have been treated unkindly. We have been yelled at by a loved one, we have been belittled by a loved one. Even at work environment, we have been belittled. And so there's this constant belittling that is going on in life. Anytime we don't get our way, anytime we get upset, we instantly have this ability within ourselves to lash out. We have this ability to spit venom. We have this ability to even just be passive-aggressive. One of my least favorite things on the planet is when people give the cold shoulder. Why? Well, simply because when we give the cold shoulder, which is a form of incredible aggression, there is no way to build that bridge while you're in that Arctic tundra. And so it's curious that whenever we get upset, either we instantly lash out, or what happens is that we become frigid. So it's interesting that a polarity happens. We become overly hot, or we become overly cold. And in either of those situations, peace cannot be found until there is some thawing or some cooling that happens. Isn't that cool? And so the emotional PTSD it really goes in to say that there is a reason for the way that I'm speaking in unkindness. And the reason why I'm speaking in unkindness or becoming upset or acting passive-aggressively is because I feel threatened. And some of you have heard me say this before, but write this quote down again. There is no threat here. There is no threat here. So every time we feel threatened, we are, even if it's an illusion, we might be just making all that shit up in our head, but even if it's an illusion, we start to treat the situation with less kindness, even before we have gone into it asking for clarity. So all of a sudden, we get triggered, and then before the person may even know that we're triggered, we go into the situation ready for battle, because we're thinking that the other person's going to lash out at us in some way. Now I have a personal experience with this. So my beloved boyfriend Andrew, none of this he really knows, simply because it's all been in my head this past however many months that we've been dating. It's been a while. And so, 5 months, yeah. So 5 months that we've been dating, and what's interesting is there's been certain times where I am about to text something or have a discussion with him about something, and then I feel this thought, he's not going to like this. Oh, this is going to create a problem. Or even early on, why didn't he text me back? Is he upset? So there's this weird little whirlpool going on in my head of these negative thoughts. And they actually have nothing to do with him, because he has shown no behavior to support these accusations. But because of my negative experiences, my post-traumatic stress from previous friendships and previous relationships to where guilt and shame was used as a means of control, all of a sudden, I'm projecting the past onto the present. I'm projecting the past onto the present. And if I did not have self-awareness, if I was not wearing these robes, these magical robes that bring self-awareness into existence, I would have said something like, "Are you mad at me? What's wrong?" Or maybe I wouldn't say anything, and then I would maybe not communicate at all. I would not even express myself. And so this thought of feeling that he is upset at me would completely change how I would talk to him. Who has completely changed the way you have conversed with someone thinking that they are upset at you? Right? It's interesting, isn't it? It changes things. But do we actually know that it's a fact? Or are we just assuming things based off of past experiences and then projecting it onto the present moment? This is some good shit. Because this is something we all do, but we have very little awareness of. And then we use our past experiences as a means to reinforce our delusion. We use our past experiences to reinforce our delusion, but then something happens to where maybe 3 hours goes by and maybe he doesn't text me back. And all of a sudden, I start to create this story that, see, it's happening again. It's happening again. See, he's upset. He didn't respond. Normally he responds back, all the while he's asleep. But you see how we have this twisted sense of delusion in our mind that we can create anything into a negative situation. And if we create anything into a negative situation, we become self-sabotagers. And we end up breaking apart the relationships around us because we are so afraid of becoming hurt that we then become the abuser first. Write that down. We're so afraid of becoming hurt that we become the abuser first. Oh, that's some really, really good stuff. And that happens all the time, unbeknownst to us, because so many of us are living in this state of unawareness to where we just kind of roll into one day into the next day, into the next day, into the next day. We're not really consistent with our meditation practices. We've all heard of this interesting word, this foreign word, meditation. And then everyone, believe me, every single person who has sat in my office, they always say, "I've tried meditating. I've tried, but I just can't still my mind." Well, that's why we meditate. Get to that point of stillness of mind. But the very essence of why meditation is so important is because without meditation, it's very hard to have actual contemplation. Because meditation creates the stillness to actually have contemplation, to actually really question these twisted thoughts in our minds. There is nothing more self-indulgent than negative self-awareness. Self-indulgence or actually no, negative self-awareness. I like this. This is something new. Negative self-awareness is self-indulgent because you're making everything about you. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Negative self-awareness is self-indulgent. There is don't get out the pitchforks. But there is nothing more selfish than being in a bad mood. There's nothing more selfish than being in a bad mood. Any thoughts to why? Open forum. Just throw out a thought if you're interested in being on camera. Any thoughts of why being in a bad mood is selfish?
Energy can transfer.
Energy can transfer, absolutely. We then start to negatively impact those around us. What else?
Inward focus.
Inward focus. We are so focused on our own whatever. And a lot of times, is it necessarily true? Oftentimes it's not. And then we go to like whatever's bothering us and we have like that deep discussion. Do you normally feel better? Who has felt better after a bad mood? Hopefully everyone. But if you felt better after a bad mood, that means it wasn't that big of a deal to begin with. Right? Because you've worked it out in your mind. You have made peace with it. So what if we just skipped that whole phase? Isn't that cool? And that's literally what these robes represent. That's what this very center exists for. Now, I'm not telling you to deny negative emotion, because negative emotion is awesome. I love it. I do not view it as a bad thing. All I do is I view it as information. We've talked about this many times before. Negative emotion is information. And if you can assimilate that information more quickly, guess what happens? You don't need to suffer constantly. You just say, oh, this is some information. This is showing me where my ego is triggered. This is showing me where I could use a little bit of growth. And I can now come into greater alignment with it. Thank you. Thank you, person who pissed me off. I'm more enlightened now because of the situation. Isn't that cool? Such a soft way of looking at it. And I would invite everyone at home to watch this video 20 times, or even just that segment again and again and again, because you want to get this into your subconscious mind, because what happens is that we have all this other muck in our subconscious mind, because we have all this post-traumatic stress in our subconscious mind. When negative things come to you, you don't say, oh goody, I'm so excited, this is a treat for me to experience and savor. We say, I am being threatened right now, back away. And when we say, I'm being threatened right now, back away, you're losing all of your strength. You're losing all of your power to actually grow. And write this down. Without observation, there could be no transformation. Without observation, there could be no transformation. So, when we push people away and we back away from the things that are triggering us, what ends up happening? Well, there's no observation there. We miss out on the chance to really savor that experience. All of 2016 was me saying yes to being triggered. Literally. I think somewhere halfway through the year, I just said, I don't want anyone or anything to feel like they have to walk on eggshells around me, so I want all my eggshells to be smashed, even into smaller pieces until it goes into the earth. And so I embraced every triggered moment without eagerness. And so even if I would go somewhere that I knew I was going to be triggered, I said, good, I want to be triggered. I want to see if I can survive being triggered. I want my ego to be smashed to pieces and to see what's left. So most of us spend our life trying to keep our ego intact. Anything that criticizes us, we just choose not to be around. We just kind of back away, or we attack them. We shut them down with our words. How dare you say that about me? And then they never say it again. But that's a really great disservice, because you want to be able to withstand anything that bothers you. That is what builds strong roots of practice. But if we're constantly trying to keep ourselves in this bubble where nothing bothers us at all, what ends up happening is it ends up being a great disservice. But after we gain the information, you of course don't have to keep going back into the pile of thorns again and again and again and again and again. But you can at least, once you know where the thorns come from, that's what we're looking for. So 2016, that was my year, the year of the trigger. So let us see. So yes, write this down. Expecting harm. expecting harm turns into negative projection. That's what we were talking about previously with my fun example of how I could potentially, Andrew and I's relationship could have went in a very different direction if I was constantly expecting harm from every angle. And guess what? Everyone who has self-sabotaged a relationship before? Most humans. And it's generally because we're expecting harm where there may not necessarily be harm. And then we end up getting into a lot more fights than we actually need to get into fights. Because rather than actually having awesome deep discussions and having self-awareness, we instantly say, you're the cause of my problems. You're the one that's bringing me this negative energy. We get in all of these things. So I love that. When you expect harm, even from work, even from life itself, when you expect harm, like we said, you end up becoming the abuser first. And so I cannot say that again, so please write that down and please put that up on your mirror. Just stop expecting harm from life. Because when I expect harm, I then become more conflicted. I then go into every experience with a sword and a shield. And when you walk into an experience with a sword and a shield, what happens? Someone's going to get cut. Someone's going to get cut. And this is the only way to transcend this cycle of violence and abuse in our lives is we have to stop feeling threatened by everyone and we have to stop attacking everyone. But the truth is, all of us still have this ego in us that is constantly fighting for ground. We want to feel safe, and every time someone compromises our feeling of safety, we then go on the offensive, and we make them feel worse about themselves.